Good morning, Victimology. I just wanted to do a quick little video with you to kind of explain a couple of the different ways that we report crime so that it will help you with your discussion post. Because in class today, I want to do some employment. For me, it's Employability Week. So I kind of want to go over some different things that are not classroom related, but we can't afford to miss any class time. So what I wanted to do was to explain to you some of the different reporting systems or reports that give us information on crime. And then you will see that I will ask you in the discussion post to actually find an article, and then you will discuss these different types of reporting systems as well as that article. And then I want to know your opinion, pros, the cons, which one you like, why you don't like it, and then respond back to one another. So this is a discussion we will not do in class. You will need to do this one on your own and respond. You will write your original and respond to two others, okay? So basically, I want to discuss, and you should all know at this point in time, what the UCR is. It's the Uniform Crime Report. Who is in charge of tracking that information? The FBI. They hold on to all of that. They do the quarterly or annual reports, and you can always go back and even as a regular citizen, you can go back and look at that information. What are the pros of that? The pros are the legitimacy, sorry, new braces, the legitimacy of the information. It is coming from local law enforcement agencies. A form is being filled out and it is submitted to the FBI. Again, that's a federal agency, so therefore that lends to the credibility of the information. The cons of the UCR, in my opinion, are the fact that crimes in this jurisdiction can be called one thing, while in another jurisdiction, the exact same crime can be called something else. So therefore, are you truly getting accurate data as to how many batteries are committed, or, the different felonies and things like that? It only measures a certain amount of crime as well. That might be something that you want to look at. That could be a pro, that could be a con in your opinion. The other thing that pro or con is that the agencies have the ability to participate and fill out that report at their discretion. Not every agency chooses to participate in divulging UCR information. Reason for that could be if the information isn't put out there, then people aren't focused on the crime. And if they're moving into that area, what are the things that most people in their 20s or 30s are looking at when they're buying property? They're looking at the quality of the school systems, they're looking at the safety of the neighborhoods, and then they're looking at the safety and the crime that's committed in whatever jurisdiction, whether like the city of Stewart or Martin County. So if the UCR isn't out there, then they don't have the ability to see that, and then that might give them the perception that crime rates are much lower than they truly are. Okay, so I'm sure you can come up with other pros and cons, and that is completely at your discretion. Okay, but that's what the UCR is. After that, we have NIBRS, NIBRS. Okay, and what NIBRS does, and it's the National Incident Based Reporting System. National Incident Based Reporting System, yes. Okay, and I'm going to read this to you. It was implemented to improve the overall quality of crime data collected by law enforcement. So again, pro, it's being collected by law enforcement, okay? It captures details on each single crime incident. So it's not an overall picture, it's an individual picture, okay? As well as on separate offenses from the same incident, okay? So you can have one incident happen, you can show up at the house, and you can end up with multiple charges that come out of that. So if you show up for a domestic violence, it could then lead to a disorderly conduct. It could lead to battery on a law enforcement officer or first responder. It could fleeing and eluding. So what it's going to do is it's going to give you a bunch of the criminal elements that happened at that one incident. Okay? So that could be a pro, that could also be a con. So pro, you're getting a very well-rounded picture. Con, you're getting a lot of information and it might make your research, depending on what you're doing, much harder to dig through. All right? In 2021, the historic summary reporting system, that's a different data collection system that was even more intensive than NIBRS. They completely phased it out. At some point, too much information can hinder what the person who's using it needs. So also realize that you as a student are going to go to one source or another because that's best for you. As somebody that's a homeowner that's looking to move, they're going to want to look at something different. And then if it's law enforcement or if it's a community service agency or something like that, they might want something a little more well-rounded, or they might want something that's victim-based. Which then leads me to the last one, which is the NCVS, which is the National Crime Victimization Survey. This has a lot of stuff that is good and bad. The good part is we're not looking at the criminal element and only the criminal element. We are looking at how the victim feels about what happened, and more on, it helps us to figure out how to deal with that individual and what services they may need, what they're finding out. Do we need to educate our law enforcement officers better on how to deal with the person? Because everybody acts differently. The problem with that, the pro, is that you're actually focusing on the person that went through the situation and you're getting their account. Okay, we are focused, and that this is me. I'm a victimologist. I am focused on the person who has been harmed. What do we have to do to help make them whole again? And realize by making somebody whole, I don't mean get over it and move on and forget it. I mean, have they been financially damaged? Have they been emotionally damaged? Physically damaged? What do we have to do to make their quality of life as back to normal as humanly possible? And sometimes it's not an easy fix, and sometimes it's not fixable at all. But we're always striving to make the situation better for them. Okay? So think of that when you're thinking of your pros and your cons, because we can't always do what it is that we want to do based on how they are dealing with or perceive the situation that happened to them. The cons of that are, we talked about it in class. At what point in time do you interview them? Their perception, their ability to recall, their feelings are going to change. Do you want to interview that victim immediately after an incident? Let's say it's a domestic violence. Do you want to do it right then? Probably not, unless your purpose is to get the immediate, the acute response to what was going on. But think about it. What can that be? They are in such a heightened state at that moment that they might, not intentionally, but they might overstate or embellish or make something seem bigger than it was, or they might not even be thinking clearly, and they might think something happened because they were expecting the beating to happen in this way, or they were, the individual has threatened to shoot the other spouse. So they may say that they perceived there to be a weapon there, and there wasn't. So at that point, they're extremely emotional. So it may, depending on, like I said, what it is you're trying to get research-wise, that may or may not be the best time to talk to them. Do you want to wait a year and talk to them later? Probably not, because time changes memories. All right. So you also at that point have individuals that are talk to one another, and one person's story bleeds into another, and then it becomes a whole different thing. Okay. So then you're kind of playing telephone, and you're not necessarily getting the real story. You're getting a blend and a mix of possible good and bad information. I've shown you in class when I talked about my domestic situation, which was almost 30 years ago now, that I have to be very careful in how I speak about it, because I have a tendency, I used to very much discount it and say, it only happened this amount of times. It was not as bad as I thought it was. So as time goes by and healing goes by, we have a tendency to sweep things under the rug. We've compartmentalized them. They're not necessarily part of our everyday life. So we may downplay the situation. And I can tell you from some of the things that when I would talk about it in class, you guys would call me out on that. One of the things I used to say was, he only beat me once. But if you remember the story that I told you, that beating was a beer can upside the head, a broken old telephone receiver handle on my head, and he hung me upside down off a 3-story balcony. Only once? Who cares? Okay? Not a good situation, and probably wouldn't designate it as domestic violence now. You guys wanted to label it as attempted murder. Me personally, I kind of liked it when you said that and said, hell yeah, that's what he probably should have gotten. But way back then, that's not what he got. He ended up getting a disorderly conduct. Okay? So realize that timing, you don't want to do it immediately. You don't want to wait too long. You want to focus on just the right point of the person being calm to give you the most accurate information so you can assess what they need. Okay? So that's your mini lecture on Module 3. That'll help you answer the discussion. And then in class, I'm about to make you super employable. All right? So I will catch you guys in exactly 7 minutes. Bye.